So what we need today is hot glue sticks and hot glue gun, as always. A knife, as always. Something to build out of, which I'm going to use a wooden dowel or two. I'm using 2 wooden dowels since I'm making 2 of it. And a template, which you can just make up. This one I just hand drew. This is optional. EVA foam you also need, and also, big thing you need, music. So, keep that in mind. So there are 2 items I forgot to mention before, which are mostly optional. A heat gun, so if you want to do like scratches and whatnot on it, use a heat gun. It also helps seal the foam a little better before painting. And you got foam clay, modeling clay, modeling foam I should say, which is pretty much EVA foam, just moldable. Give it about 24 hours to dry and it'll be just like regular EVA foam. Highly recommended for patching small holes and seams that you don't want. Okay, to begin with, depending on how many axes you make, that will differ depending on how many you want to make, but you want templates to be made. Also depending on what type of foam. If you're using the same foam I use most of the time, which has no texture, unlike this stuff which I used to use all the time. This stuff has a textured side and a non-textured side. If you're using that foam, then I recommend you flip your template every time you trace it. So this way you have a front, a left and a right. This way you don't have the textured side on either. But if you're using this, it doesn't really matter. Keep that in mind. So if you're gonna make 2 axes, you have to trace out at least 4 templates. Since you want one for the left, one for the right to make a bit of thickness. And then you could do a 3rd one per axe, but that's not really necessary. It's just, if you want extra thickness, there you go. Okay, so I'm doing a quick demonstration for you. With 3 layers, you can see how little it bends at a time, at any given time. But with only 2, watch how easily it bends. It bends way too easily, so I recommend doing 3 if you want, or 2. Depends on how much foam you got. I might stick with the 2 for now, depending on how sturdy it makes it when I put the hot glue on. But until I do that, I'll wait. So now that we have these bunched up into groups of 2 or 3, up to your preference, we can just hot glue these onto your dowels or wherever you're using as the handle, and just put it on wherever you like, maybe like around here, and voila, got your axe, and you can do whatever you want to it from there. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so you may have remember I mentioned a heat gun earlier. I'll show you why you need that. So first you're going to take a knife and score this, which is pretty much taking the knife and you kind of barely into the foam, just through the quote-unquote skin of it. So you have a groove, but you're not cutting all the way through. I'll show you what that looks like. Now that I've traced on and cut the small grooves, we're going to take the heat gun, turn it on, let it heat up for a bit, and go over it nice and slowly. Not too slow where you burn the foam, but nice and slow enough where you can just heat it up. Turn it off and then give it a second and you'll see that the crack's starting to form. If it works for me right now, it just doesn't work, but eventually once it cools off, you'll see cracks in the foam along here. I'll show you once. Here's what it looks like. As you can see, there's a big difference in these gaps now. Before we couldn't see them. Now they're quite apparent, and they'll look even more apparent once painted. This one's harder to see because it's still cooling off, but if you look here, it's good. While up here, it's hard to notice as much unless if you really look. So the final thing I'm going to do for right now is take these thin pieces of foam, and before you ask, no, I do not know the exact size. I think it's like 5 millimeters, 3 millimeters of thickness of foam. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. And I'm going to wrap it around the handle tightly. So you'll be gluing one spot in and tightly wrapping it around, like really tight, stretching it tight. So I'll show you how that looks. I guess I didn't need foam clay for this build, but it's always nice to have it since these came out really nicely. So I like how they came out. All that's left is to paint them eventually. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please like and subscribe. Don't feel like you have to, but it would be a huge help. Thanks.